there. Well, I'm joined now by Professor of European Politics and Foreign Affairs at King's College London, Anand Menon. Thanks for joining us. What do you see as the significance of Liz Truss actually going to this meeting? Could it provide an opportunity for a slightly different relationship with our European neighbours post-Brexit?
Well, I think the first thing to say is the alternative to Liz Truss being there would be Liz Truss being virtually the only European leader not to be there. So I think it's important for her to be around the table with all those other European leaders. That being said, there is a danger, I think, that the European political community turns into nothing more than a talking shop. 44 national leaders in one room for one day implies that they're not really going to get into any great detail on any of the issues they're confronting. But as I say, symbolically, I think the fact that Liz Truss has decided to go, particularly given the scepticism voiced by her predecessors, I think something that is important in its own right.
I mean, the fact that she is just in the room with other European leaders, having obviously British ministers have now excluded themselves effectively from a lot of those sort of annual and monthly meetings post-Brexit. That is important, isn't it, for keeping links alive when as a bloc, regionally, the UK obviously is facing pressures globally on Ukraine and other fronts.
Absolutely. And, these European leaders face many common challenges. So in that sense, it's an interesting initiative. And also bear in mind that I think perhaps the greatest opportunity for many of these leaders at this meeting will not be the set-piece sessions or the sort of formal press conferences, but the chances they're going to get during the afternoon to have bilateral meetings with key partners. So we're expecting Liz Truss to see President Macri, for her to see the Dutch Prime Minister, for her possibly to see the President of the European Commission. And I suspect it's at those bilaterals away from the cameras where most serious business will get done rather than at the plenaries.
She's obviously in a very precarious position at home. How is that going to affect how other countries treat her? I mean, obviously, she's very new in the job.
Yeah, I don't think it'll affect how other countries treat her because she is the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. It does give her an opportunity to come across as a stateswoman, as someone dealing with big problems on an international stage. And I think other leaders will take her seriously because there are serious issues they want to discuss with us, not just the Ukraine war and European reactions, but also, of course, the continuing standoff over the Northern Ireland Protocol and Brexit.
What is President Macron hoping that this body will achieve? Because obviously there is the EU, there are NATO, there's so many groupings, aren't there? How does this fit into all the others?
Well, I think there has been among many European leaders a desire to bring all European countries together in a forum that was bigger than NATO and bigger than the European Union. What will be interesting is whether this turns into an attempt by the European Union to keep its neighbours happy short of membership, because many of the Balkan states attending are suspicious of this initiative. They see it as an alternative to membership. The difficulty is you've got two sets of states, one set of states that want to join, another set of neighbouring states that are very keen not to join, and whether or not the European political community manages to be all things to all countries remains to be seen.
And in terms of what you see from the Truss government, new as it is, with what they've said regarding Brexit, we've seen interesting changes in tone, for example, from Steve Baker, haven't we, referring to Northern Ireland Protocol. Mm-hmm. What are you hearing about the Truss government's approach to the EU in the immediate aftermath of their, this new leadership? Obviously, they've had a lot on their plates.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you put your finger on it. We've heard a change of tone. We've heard a change of tone from Steve Baker. We've heard a change of tone from the Prime Minister. There's been a very warm tone adopted by the new Foreign Secretary, James Cleverly. What we haven't heard is any change in substance. And the standoff over the protocol is about substance rather than anything else. So we're going to have to wait to see. I think talks are meant to resume today between James Cleverly and the European Union. And we're going to have to see whether this change of tone is accompanied by any shift in substance, because that shift in substance is what is required for that to be a deal.
And we talked a bit about Liz Truss being in a slightly precarious position. Obviously, there's always a concern, isn't there, by some when the Prime Minister is out of the country. Obviously, they've just had the Conservative Party conference, but she's facing a lot of critics within her own party. Is it in a way dangerous to be out of the country, looking at these bigger picture things? Will critics say, look, there's a massive economic challenge, a huge crisis facing millions of people here. Shouldn't she be at home?
Mm-hmm. Well, I wouldn't have thought so for two reasons. One, I'm pretty certain that her staff will be in constant contact with London while she's over there in Prague, so she's not sort of out of touch with what's going on at home. And secondly, I think she's going to put a lot of emphasis on the energy crisis and what it means and on joint reactions. So she will appear as if she's doing something about this economic crisis. And also, I think it's worth bearing in mind that in a paradoxical way, domestic weakness can be international strength in the sense that she can say to other leaders, look, I'm in a precarious position at home. There's not much I can do to compromise, so you need to cut me more slack because otherwise I'm going to face problems with my domestic coalition. So there are instances where being able to argue that you are under pressure at home might actually give you a tiny bit more leverage when dealing with foreign partners.
Professor Menon, Anand Menon, thanks so much for your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.